In everything I do, I hold an intention out. I've learned to treat this life and every moment as sacred, and I really hold that. It's so helpful to like have this intention as you walk through life. Intention is such a powerful thing. But now looking back at it, I needed something to replace it. After I stopped being religious, I felt unsure of my experience, a little bit hopeless, a little bit like lost, wondering about dying, like what happens when you die. Oh, that's scary. I'm scared of death now. That was enough for me to be like, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, I'm done. I was living in like a daily hell. How do I find a way to feel comfortable in this extreme discomfort? This is the experience for me that caused the biggest trauma in my life. I guess that's probably how I learned, like, that's how you do it. You gotta sit with this, and that's how you get through it. Any moment or interaction has a potential to deeply wound you, cause trauma, even if it's something little and weird. I was not comfortable in my own skin, and realizing that vibration is my choice. Every single day I trust more and more. It strengthens my faith. This is a huge shadow uncovering, and I feel it is unlocking an unbelievable potential for me from this point forward. Every new experience, if you let it, will unlock a new ability or a new way to tap into this source energy that we are all part of. You can be the queen or king in your game if you connect to those forces. Ego can step aside for a little bit.
Just for a little bit, huh?
Ego's never going to disappear. Ego's always here. We're human. Feeling into your attraction abilities. Play around. You're going to find that where you put your focus is what continually comes to you. Eternal work in process. That's what I always say. Like, we're a work in process all the time. People are gonna watch this, they're gonna be like, I fucking knew that she thought that about herself all this time.
No, you don't understand. You're the only one who's not aware of how obvious it is. Everyone else is like, oh yeah, that's like the first thing I noticed.
Yeah, we can move on to the good part.
What's our mission? What are we here to do?
I planned everything, but I didn't plan, like, how am I going to introduce this? Well, I guess, like, I did. It's just that, like, alright, so, well, let's talk about this. So, like, sometimes, you know, I get caught up in, like, the drilling down, like, points of, like, you know, talking points and directions and like a schedule and an agenda. But then, like, when it really comes down to it, like, now I'm speaking from the heart, and this is like what I set myself up for. And this is the fun part, right? It's like,
yeah.
Now I'm here to introduce this episode of the 2PU podcast. And this is going to be an episode all about me. And so for anybody who doesn't know, like, if this is your first time here, or like maybe I haven't been clear about like introducing myself or talking about myself, but in this episode I am going to introduce myself. So my name is Kim, and today I want to talk about, first I want to talk about what I'm here doing with the podcast, like what my intentions are, and talk about a little bit about myself. And then I'm going to invite Brendan in. Brendan's here with me, and I'm so excited to have him. He's going to help host this episode and ask me some questions. These questions are going to be from you guys and Brendan's intuition and other people that I have talked to and asked, like, what do you want to know? What do you want to ask me to find out what it's like to be me? So I have some questions I want to go through. Right now, I just want to talk a little bit about me. I think that, everyone, when we incarnate into this reality, like, we start off as this, like, fresh new life. And there's so many things that we learn and accumulate from that time. And that tends to shape a person's, like, perceived identity, like, in their own eyes and in the eyes of those around us. So I think that I'm very complex and complicated at this time in my life because I'm 38 years old and I've been here for a little bit and had few experiences. So definitely have some, like, things, like big things, little things you wouldn't expect, things that I'm still unconscious of that shape me as the person sitting here today. And I think I'm kind of at this point on this process, on this journey of rediscovering and learning who I am at, like, my soul core, like, other than being human. Because if you think about it, like, being human, that's all, that's most of the time all that you have really awareness of. Like, this reality is so dense, it's so heavy, and it's so like, we are in it, and it's very encapsulating. Is that the word? It's like we're engulfed in it.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really, there are ways to, like, kind of get outside of that perspective, but then, like, you still come back to this in the end, and you sometimes, like, even if you get out of it for a minute, you, like, kind of question, like, oh, was that really real? Because now I'm back here and, like, this feels really real.
Yeah. And it's the purpose to be inside this reality, right? So.
Mm-hmm. All right. So yeah, and I want to talk about like what I've been doing and what I find important in that. So one of the things that has been so fundamental in this for me is setting intention. And that's something that you actually pointed out about me, Brendan, that I'm very intentional. Mm-hmm. In my streams, you would say I'm very intentional. But yeah. like in everything I do, I hold an intention now. It's like I treat, like, I've learned to treat this life and every moment in it as sacred. And I really hold that. And I feel like there have been different ways that I've tried to honor that sacredness, and they were usually intuitive. And I feel like actually this past weekend I learned a lot about, I learned something, like, huge for me, actually. So I learned that intention and, like, vibration, everything, it all originates from within you. So, like, so I set a lot of intentions with my podcast, right? We light the podcast candle, and with that as an intention, it's like I could set intention with my mind and decide to honor that. But I feel like with things like a candle, like it's almost like setting my intention on autopilot. So it's like as long as this candle is burning, my intention is as clear as it was when I set it, when I lit the candle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of how I like keep that sacred. Another thing, like everything, like I make intention with everything. I was telling Brenda before we started recording that like I even set intention with the type of tea I drink. So like I wanted some honey because I was going to be talking a lot. And I also did, like I had a little chamomile for vibes. And then the other teas are, the other things I put in there are blue lotus flower and butterfly pea tea, which is another blue flower. So, and they also like have other like kind of calming and like mood setting properties. So, but really like the blue flower is kind of like I wanted to like drop in, and like my intention is to radiate and like project and amplify my throat chakra and like make sure that I'm communicating, like, and also another thing is like saying a little prayer too. Like I started saying this prayer every day. Basically it's thy will be done. So it's just the intention that I will set my ego aside and allow spirit in and connect with what is really what I can do for the highest good of all. So I want to let you guys know that the podcast is like, I'm very dedicated to it. I'm really excited. I still have like more guests that I'm talking to, more people that I want to interview, and I definitely want to pursue like a lot of growth with it. So right now, like in order to like not burn myself out, I'm going to try to like commit to a schedule of like seasons. So I'm going to call like this summer season like season 1. So like it started in July, like beginning of July, ending in end of August. So that was the 8 episodes. So it's going to end up being like 8 or 9 episodes per season. So my first season was this summer. The second season is going to be, I actually didn't bring my calendar over to like say it, but it's going to be like a winter season. So I think it's going to be like February, March, between those 2 months. And we'll just run weekly episodes just like I did this season during that time. In the off time, I am still planning to release episodes. They're just not going to be like adhering to any like specific schedule. I might still have like a certain day and time that I'll release, of like day of the week or something, but it's probably not going to be as regular. I'm not going to put pressure on myself to like finish episodes in like a weekly basis. Right? That's the right word. And yeah. And I want to talk about like my experience going through working with this podcast and what I've learned about myself and different exciting evolutions in my own journey. So yeah, I've had so much fun with it. It feels like it's the only thing it's like the first thing in my life that I've like totally managed on my own, and I feel, well, I've had help from other people, but like the whole production is completely me. I don't know if like you guys watching this realize that like it's all completely produced by me. And I was reflecting on that a few days ago, and I was just feeling so accomplished and proud of myself, and I was like hit with tears because I was like, wow, I really am like expressing myself in like the exact way that I want to, and it feels so good. And yeah, it just feels like I'm so proud of myself. And I have also made like such awesome connections with people. I've made like really good friends, and I just feel more and more that like we are all on this crazy awakening path together, and we're evolving so fast. And I see it on like a daily basis, like in my interactions. It's really, really, really amazing. And I just know that this like is the right thing for me right now, and I'm following this path, and I'm gonna keep going on it, and I'm going to pursue this as long as it feels good, and it keeps feeling better and better. So I don't see me stopping this anytime soon. And yeah, and now I want to talk to you guys about learning and realizing through this whole podcast process what it is to be me. So now I'm gonna invite Brendan to start asking me questions. So you already did ask me a really, really good question, which is like you want me to get into like my background and like what is the story of me? Like who am I? How did I get here?
Who was Kim before, and how did she become Kim now?
Yeah, before and now is a very important distinguisher, right? So like before what? Like what are we talking about? There's so many, well, there's not that many like different, okay, there's a lot of different versions of Kim, but I would say like there is kind of a defining moment or period of time at least where it was like my cocoon phase, right? It was like I was going through a complete like disruption of my understanding of life and reality and me and the way I fit into all this.
Who was asleep? Who was totally spiritually asleep, Kim?
Well, you met that Kim, and that, I mean, maybe not for very long. Like, I would say I did have some spiritual, like, you know, I got knocked down a couple times, like, before, like, the big one.
Yeah,
and
you
those
were tossing and turning a little bit when I came in, I think.
Yeah, that was it. That was the actual shit of it going through. Beginning of 2020. That was when like stuff really started going down for me. So before that, I did have some other like distinguishing moments, but let's just go back to like, you know, before I ever had a thought about spirituality or like how like anything near where I am now. So oh my god. I'm gonna talk about this. Alright. So you know, when I was growing up, going through school, there were like a lot of like really defining like things that happened in my life, defining like dynamics that like shaped like me as a person. So when I was a kid, I don't know, I think I had like a pretty like fun like outlook on life. Like I like to have fun. I like to play outside, and I you know, I would make friends, I would hang out with them. I would say, like, something I'm reflecting on recently would be, like, and this was something that kind of, like, really came up for me over this past week, and I became aware of something that I wasn't really until this weekend. But I think when I was a kid, making friends always had, like, a weird uncomfortableness for me. I wonder if anybody else would, like, relate to this. But now I'm, like, actually seeing it and vocalizing it. Like, I never really reflected on this before now. But it was like I would have neighbors with kids who I would, like, make friends with, but it was just because we were neighbors. And, like, you know, sometimes, like, we'd have, like, uncomfortable, like, things happen, or, like, somebody would say something that would, like back then it was, like, a big trauma for me, like, but it also probably shaped, like, the way that I make friends in the future and now. So, like, one thing a specific event that I'll point out, if I can remember the details, I had a neighbor, and I remember she, like, had, like, a bag of candy or something. And, like, she was just, like, she was at my house, and it was just me and her talking. She had this bag of candy, and I think I, like, asked her if I could have one. And she said, "Oh, no, this candy is for my friends." So it was like, that was kind of a clear jab. Well, I took it as a jab, right? Because, oh, well, I'm not your friend, I guess. So, and, like, I didn't say that out loud back then because, yeah, I was hurt, but I just took the hurt inside. And I felt like, wow, so I'm not her friend? Like, what would I have to do to be her friend? Like, what kind of people are her friends? Like, what's wrong with me that I can't be her friend? And something like that, like, really shapes the way that you perceive yourself in an interaction when you're meeting someone new and when you're just hanging out with friends. So now I'm realizing, like, I've had this self-doubt in me all along. Like, who really is my friend? Like, who really thinks of me as their friend? So, you're really getting in there.
Oh yeah, by the way, I don't mention this very often, but I do have a superpower for making people cry by asking intense questions.
Really? Oh, then you're the perfect person for this interview.
Yeah. Yes, if you don't mind crying during the interview. So just be aware, if it creeps up on you, you can ask to get bailed out a little bit, and I can try to dial down the intensity for a second.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Maybe intentional is the wrong word to describe it, but it is a natural effect that I have had historically. So
wow.
Just be aware.
You know, I actually was not aware of that, and that's crazy that you say that out, because I totally intuitively chose you for this, like, to help me with this. Obviously, for a reason. Wow. And yeah, just to say, like, it's not that I want to, like, show everyone my tearful side and, like, cry, but, like, I want to be real, and I want to be authentic, so
we're gonna get down to the deep waters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm open to that, and I want to be more open to that. I find it really exciting. I find this process. I'm so passionate about shadow work and, like, working through the shadows and evolving with consciousness. It's just so amazing. I find it so beautiful and fascinating and exciting. So that is the drive behind. Just
Yeah.
letting it all out in this.
But
Okay.
yes, so you were talking about how one of your friends growing up wounded you deeply.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you think back on moments in your life. Any moment or interaction has a potential to deeply wound you and cause trauma, and like you, like even if it's something little and like weird, like it's probably going to affect the way, like if you don't breathe and process that in the moment, right? Then it affects your future.
You hold on to it until you can process it, right? It's the same
That's
thing
what
you
it
were
is, right?
processing.
Because then it's like
Yeah.
when you consciously realize, oh, what just happened? Like if I had all those thoughts about like if I asked her like, hey, so you don't think that I'm your friend? Like in the moment, like the issue would have been solved right then. With clear
Yeah.
communication. That's
Or
like still
yeah,
a possible moment that could have happened.
yeah. I mean, if you were more confident in that situation, then you could have been like, "Oh, I'm your friend, though." You know,
Exactly.
like what stopped you from just
Yeah.
asserting it? It's like, "Oh, this is just for my
Right.
friends." Like, perfect. I'm your best friend, so you should give me half the bag.
Yeah, and maybe like from the other side, like maybe that's something she was wanting to hear but didn't like, but I didn't know and I didn't say what I was really thinking. So like if I did say something like that out loud, she would have been like, "Oh, yes, you're my friend. I'm so happy to have you as a friend." And like who knows what could have come out of that.
Yeah, but that's just not where you both were.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's like this is where we are. Like
Mhm.
that's
Oh
part
yeah,
of
it's
it.
fine. You know, it just traumatized you for decades. Nothing big. Yeah.
But it's so I find it so beautiful to come back into that awareness and like see, and I could actually point out moments and other foundations and other friendships that has affected everything up until now. And I can look at that and analyze and see like, yeah, I was with my friend all weekend and I didn't realize that I was being uptight and like self-conscious about the way I was behaving and the way I was presenting myself and the way I was just talking in conversation.
This weekend.
Yeah.
Oh.
This was like, well, this weekend was when I had that kind of bigger realization of that trauma of like, because I actually was able to get into a place where I felt. So okay, so this is like I was telling you about like a telepathic experience I had earlier. So this weekend I had like a really awesome telepathic experience with my friend, and I vividly was actually able to drop into her perception of the reality around her. And I know it was her perception because it was a completely different feeling that I have never felt before. And I decided to let myself like really drop in and really feel that. I was like, how deep does this go? So I literally like let my body relax and I let myself feel into that energy. And it was like the most calm, peaceful, beautiful, loving energy. It was so amazing. I've never felt anything like that before. And of course, like when you have an experience like that, like for me at this time, it was very short-lived. Like I felt that energy and then I eventually came out of it. Like when I was kind of like sitting on my own and she was doing her own thing at the time. We were just chilling. And when she came back to interact with me again, I was like, okay, back in the physical reality, I'm physically back with you. And that was a crazy experience too, because like it really is just like you're funneling your whole self into like this this experience. Like, and like from coming back down into it, I lost a little bit. Like I couldn't like grasp the whole thing right when I came back because I didn't have access to the whole thing, but like once it like kind of funneled into me, like I could integrate more and more, like bit by bit, and actually experience like the full download of that. So freaking cool, so awesome. And okay, so basically when I came out of that, I realized that my own energy, I felt my own energy again. I was like, wow. Like, I realized before coming into that experience, I was not relaxed. I was not comfortable in my own skin. Like, I had a very, like, chaotic vibration. I had a very, like, super self-conscious, like, feeling insecure about the way I was being. And that was such a vivid way to come into experiencing that and realizing that that vibration is my choice. And that it was like subconscious causes, probably because it's like right now I just picked apart that one trauma from when I was a kid. That was just like I was just starting. There's so many more like interactions like I was kind of thinking back on that like shaped how I feel about interactions and being with friends and expressing myself and being comfortable with myself, expressing myself with friends and in any social setting. This is huge. This is huge. And it's like blowing my mind in this moment even. Like, I don't know if you can feel this. Like, this is huge for me. Like, this is a huge shadow uncovering. And I feel that it is unlocking an unbelievable potential for me from this point forward. Potential is infinite.
What are some, I guess, new powers that you feel like you've unlocked recently? Are those significant to you? I don't think anyone asked that specific question, but a lot of
That's
people
okay.
ask some questions that are kind of like that. Or actually, Soma79 asked one that's kind of related. What are some empowering steps you have made to improve your life? So I am not going to ask that one now, but you can answer it at the same time as this one. What are some of your new powers that you feel like you have compared to that you're glad and that you didn't have before?
I love that question, Brendan, and I'm so like, yeah, you I knew that you asked like really good intuitive questions. So yeah. Thank you for that. Oh, that's such a good question. I have like the recent ones are just like blowing my mind right now still, right? So like I was talking about like with the telepathic experience, and I feel like every new experience, if you let it, will like unlock an opportunity to discover a new ability or a new way to tap into this source energy that we are all part of. And there are a lot of different abilities that I personally have discovered in myself. And it was really, like, if I think about it, it was really like a slow, gradual process of opening myself up to the possibility of more and more and believing in more and more first, that itself is a really awesome power. Like just the power of belief and expansion in that belief. And one of the biggest things I guess that I can articulate is that I've learned, and this is a gradual process too, but I've learned to feel into my intuition and in a way that I can like, wow, what did I want to say? Shit.
So talking about the power of belief, you're learning to feel into your intuition.
Yeah, feeling into my intuition in a way that it guides my life, and in a way that every single day I trust more and more. It strengthens my faith.
Well, so can you talk a little bit more, like, can you clarify what you mean by the power of belief? What's the power of belief?
Yeah, well, so if I can go back to before Kim, like my beliefs were not solid at all. They weren't really set in anything. I kind of just before Kim went through life with some kind of idea of what I wanted or what I thought I wanted.
Hopes and dreams, yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest one, well, some of the biggest ones really I think shaped my my goals and what I thought I wanted. I don't even know if that made sense. Sorry, but yeah,
the word for me that I would use is that so many of us we had wishes and we hoped that someone would come along and grant them.
Wow, Brendan. Wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But now you're trying to be the powerful person who grants wishes.
Yes.
So maybe that helps you along. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit. So you had these hopes and dreams, right? Things that you thought you wanted, right? So there are those, but are those, so how does that relate to the power of belief?
So,
or in contrast, what is the power of belief if that's not it?
Well, I just strung it together. Okay, so the powerful belief that I have that I learn to believe more and more every day is that I am the creator of my own reality, and that I have power with my intention to set things on a course that I want it to go. I'm not everything is exactly going to go my way all the time. That's not what that means. What this power means, what this power of belief is, it's just opening yourself up to the possibility that your potential is infinite. That's the best way I think that I can describe it. That belief is powerful if you can grasp it and live it. So I can't remember the base question now. So we were talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more about the power of belief, and what are some of the powers that you feel like you have now that you didn't have before. And I agree about the power of belief thing. I don't think I would have expected 2 years ago Kim to be able to start this podcast and do it just from her own internal support. because it's not like you weren't ambitious before, right? Trying some things, right? You put out your feelers and you tried a few things. From what I could see, right? I don't want to be the one expressing your experience for you, but from what I could observe, you were seeking the thing that would work, and it's not like the other things couldn't work, but then you kind of got into this position and you're able to make it happen because now you do have the power of, right, believing in your potential, and that, well, I'm open to the possibility of this succeeding, and you'll just go until you get to where you need to go.
Yeah, and part of that, like the other side of that is like when you, well, I guess like maybe this is another power, but like being able to envision like what you really want as a result. Like, what are your goals? Like you said, I'm not really like a goal-oriented person. I never really have been. But being able to like daydream and like just imagine like what are like your wildest dreams and desires. Like if you can think about that and picture that and envision that, like that is like, that's the limitless potential that I'm talking about. Like I feel like if you take off the bumpers and stop limiting yourself, you can have all those things that you can imagine and envision for yourself. Like you can make it happen. Because I feel like that's happening for me like every day. And yeah, like another big thing is like learning how to feel into my intuition, like I was saying, like and trust that I'm being guided all the time, like I always have. And we talked a little bit about this too earlier, like you said, it's like, okay, so to finish my thought, sorry, like we're always guided, be it either non-physical or people in the physical who are being actually steered by their non-physical components, and like there's like a bigger game being played here. And if you can, like, instead of being a pawn, like we are when we're not like spiritually awakened, you can be like, you move up in like the, what is it, like the hierarchy of pieces. Like you can be the queen or a king in your game if you connect to those forces. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but like, yeah, with the intention thing, like that's what I mean when I say thy will be done. Like I'm asking spirit to guide me and also ask myself, my physical self, to let my ego not be so stiff and in the way. Ego can step aside for a little bit and let this more powerful part flow through me.
Just for a little bit, huh?
For, ego's never going to disappear. Ego's always here. We're human. So the best we can do is like ask it to like gently step aside here and there when we are like ready to present our like big, like, that bigger aspect of us. At most, like, you would be like, I think Abraham Hicks calls it like a blended being. So like you're still, it's like you're holding hands with your ego, and you're just like, you're doing what you can to comfort it, and because your ego is like really like the uptight, very like serious part of you that like wants to present in the world a certain way. Maybe I'm talking about my Capricorn self, but anyway.
Yeah, or it's like the ego is very serious about its image, right? Yeah, presenting a certain way, like you said. Or I guess it's called I think Jung refers to it as more like the mask that we present to other people.
Yeah. Exactly. That's like actually such a simpler way of understanding like what I went through this weekend with that, like, with my insecurities and that like shield I had up, and this like, is that what I was gonna say? This like subconscious like thing that I was holding on to, like this self-conscious.
Yeah.
I was very
it's not
self-conscious and
conscious. Yeah, it was your conscious, like you were still really like hanging on to your conscious experience and all that.
yeah, my ego would not step aside. It was like sometimes like the ego gets such a strong hold on you, and maybe you like don't even realize it.
Kind of the default. It's
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
build it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like this weekend, even when like I was trying to relax, I couldn't come out of that with my friend. And this would have been like, this was the weekend that like well, I learned that huge thing, and I learned that this friend is like part of my tribe. Like, she's really, really important to me, and we just have such a comfortable flow between us. Like, we're so aligned. So this makes me feel like more comfortable in her space, and now like it made me become aware of my like shield that I was holding up. So I was able to release that hold with my ego and let my real self flow through.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you say you're finding your tribe more now than before, or do you find your tribe a little bit as you were going through your kind of like waking up process, and that's kind of like, is that the basis, part of the basis that let you like start this podcast, or is like is part of the direction you're going in, like assembling your tribe as you're doing the podcast?
You know, I would have to say, like, I really have to admit that finding my tribe is part of the intention of the podcast. Because how can I start a podcast that's focused on community and community building and like being your best self without also like, you know, this is about, it's really about me. It's like I'm finding my tribe. I'm interviewing people who I admire and I want to share with the world around me. I'm finding people that I'm attracted to, something in them that I want to, that I think is so beautiful and amazing. And I want everyone to see this. I want everyone to know. But I would say that finding my tribe has really definitely been accelerated since I started the podcast. And like so it's happening. Like, what I intended is actually coming to fruition. I would also say, Brendan, that like you're definitely part of my tribe. And it's a small tribe. Very, very small.
Yeah.
And you're in it. And like I met you in the deepest, darkest part of my spiritual awakening, or my dark night of the soul. And I don't know, I guess I feel like it makes me feel like if you could get through that with me,
yeah, it was a dark time for a lot of us. I would agree. That was also part
and you're
of
still
my,
here. Like that's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, we came out of that tunnel, I guess, heading down the same road. So.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Do you think did past Kim have like a desire for tribe, or what was how did you relate to having your tribe or finding your tribe before heading on the podcast journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Since you asked that, I definitely did. Like, I've had...
Find tribe or want to?
Hmm?
You definitely did want to find your tribe, or you definitely did already have a tribe?
Oh, I've had a desire to find tribe. Yeah. So, yeah, and if I could get into that a little bit, like, I've had like mostly groups of friends usually in my experience. I would say I've had a group of friends through school. I've had a group of friends through, or a couple different groups of friends in my like young adulthood. And I feel like I have a very different understanding of what tribe actually means. And I mean, at this point. And I still think that people from those times are important to me then and now. And I think that there definitely was like a fulfilling element to those groups of friends, like what I would consider my tribe back then. So, but right now I mean now I wouldn't say that was my tribe. Like I feel like tribe, when I say tribe, I mean like soul tribe, like people who I know outside of this reality, probably. What I'm trying to say too is that like I've had groups of friends that did feel tribe-like at the time. Like I've had friends where like we'd always be together. We'd always go like on a camping trip together, and like there would be like certain things that we'd do. Like mostly like I would say like these were my party friends and stuff, and that would be like the common thing that gets us all together. Like that's the motivating factor. But it's like I still know all these people personally. I still have like a close bond with most of them and all of them together. Like I've definitely had like friend groups where it was like mostly, for the most part, a very harmonious group interaction, like group experience. And that's so comforting and so important, I think, for people to experience. A lot of people, and I think we talked a little bit about this in our other conversations, but like the pandemic separated us all so much, and now there's like a loneliness epidemic. People don't like connect anymore. So I think that I would say like those friend groups were so valuable to me, and that like I realize now that what I was looking for in those experiences was connection, and that was a way to explore that, and it was really fun. And I think that what I envision tribe as now is like people who know what we're all here for, and we're supporting each other in little ways or big ways on your path. And in some ways we're on the same path. In some ways we're kind of all different facets of the same like major goal, which would be like something I would point out is like elevating consciousness. And I guess when it comes down to it, I think that's really like everyone's goal. I think that's everyone's purpose.
Higher purpose.
In some sense. Yeah, it's the highest purpose, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it's just what I obsess over now. But
Mm-hmm.
so I think it's like I think it's people who are consciously aware of our joint purpose, and we are supporting each other in that. Even if it's just to like have a conversation and be like, just like relate to them. But it's always in support, and it's never like a selfish desire where I have to deplete you in order to fulfill a need of mine. That's like the old way.
Yeah.
So soul tribe, it's completely like everything works out completely harmoniously all the time. It's like there's always like positive growth from our interactions.
Yeah. Were you a religious person before ever?
I was for a little bit, like as a teenager.
Like, does your family have a religious background or like a belief?
Yeah, my family's all Catholic.
Catholic, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do you have anything to say on the topic of being Catholic?
Well, I've talked a little bit about this on other episodes, but
Okay.
I'll say that like my perspective has evolved a lot, and I realize from my current perspective things that I heard as a kid or was given the impression of with religion that was confusing to me at the time that I heard it, or like it gave me like a different kind of perspective of like reality because of like things I've learned through the church. So I think that it was like I kind of like alright, so I exited Catholicism just by chance, like, you know, probably how anyone else would. Like, I just it wasn't really resonating for me anymore, and I was learning other things, like other like philosophies and stuff, and once like those things started making sense for me and resonating, it's like the religion didn't, you know, it doesn't fit into this philosophy, so that's a contradiction. So now I have to change my beliefs and understand that there's no, like, religion's a sham, and that's kind of how I felt about like all religions. Like, religion's a sham, and like at that point it was like I didn't have anything to replace it. I didn't really think I needed something to replace it. But now looking back at it, I needed something to replace it, but I didn't have anything. So that's why after I stopped being religious or believing in my religion, I felt very just like unsure, I think, of my experience, and like kind of like a little bit hopeless, a little bit like lost, and just like wondering about scary things like dying, like what happens when you die, like if there's no God, if there's no heaven like I learned about, then whoa, that's scary. I'm scared of death now. So that was something to live through, and I lived through about a decade of that. And it wasn't really until like just like a few years ago that I started opening up again to like, well, I guess like maybe almost 10 years ago now. Like I started kind of getting more like hippy dippy and opening up to like, you know, like this kind of style and like yoga and like all the things that like really slowly, like they could be harmless if you're not religious, or if you are religious sometimes, you know, these things are harmless. Like
They
it's
make
just
you
a
question your
style.
faith and leave the church.
It's just a boho style. So, well, what I'm saying is like how I ended up creeping back into like a system of beliefs, which I now am very anchored in. So it was like a really slow process, but that worked out perfectly for me. Like it's actually, I'm just realizing it's the perfect thing for me, and it was something I so needed to learn in this life, because before Kim wanted everything like this. Like I wanted to be done with school. I didn't want to go through 4 long years of college, because that's so long. And I couldn't even imagine it. Like, what am I even going to get out of that? But now it's like, I see things like, you know, I've dedicated a lot of time to this podcast. I've dedicated years now, years and years and years to my spiritual development. And yeah, like that was maybe more like a little bit here and there. But I dedicated myself to something that was beneficial for future me. And that's something that I've had to realize, in that like future me is me too. Like I need to care about myself in the future. I want to set myself up for endless potential.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that's something I had to learn in this lifetime, I'm realizing now.
Yeah. Well, it feels like your sense of like your present self and your future self, and I guess maybe your past self too, is like a lot more connected, all connected, as opposed to like the past and the future are very like separate from the present. I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to either run away from their past, or like they're in a rush to get to like somewhere better because they're not happy with where they are presently. But then like they end up being very separate from themselves. Because the present is just like not enough, right? That's kind of their feeling, right? How I am now isn't enough. I just have to kind of like wait for and hope for something better.
Yeah. That's such a huge spiritual practice. That's like what they all say, like be here now, be in the present moment. And that's where you'll find peace. When you live in the moment and realize that like this is all you really have. Like you want to take care of yourself in the future, but you're doing it now. So like live in this present moment with the intention of like if you just have focused intention in the moment, that's really what it's about.
Yeah. Well, and I think you've talked a lot about like exactly that. Just kind of making yourself a certain way to realize your endless potential, right? And to like bring about those things that you desire. You make yourself a certain way, and then your life kind of changes. So it's you just by making a change to how you go about things and how you show up. That's sort of in a weird way the realization of your potential, and so you just kind of figure out how to do it, and then that's how you kind of just become one person who's just only in this moment, right? So if there's something that you want to realize about yourself, you become the sort of person who starts to realize it, right? Maybe it's not just like, you don't change into, like, you won't change blood into gold, right? But
it's a figurative alchemy.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, thanks. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's you're transforming yourself, right? Just through realizing how you would have to be to realize what you want to realize, and it's kind of the point of realizing your potential, is becoming that sort of person anyway. So it's in a weird way always in your power. Once you once you decide on it, right? How you want to be. So
Yeah. So cool.
Emily asks, what are your shadows? How did you discover and integrate them? And how about ego? So we talked about this a little bit, but if you want to give a more of a in-depth answer to that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's the problem with talking too much before I get to the questions. I already answered some of it. But, yeah, what are my shadows? How did I integrate them? Or how do I integrate them? And then,
How did you discover and integrate them? And then, and how about ego? And I'm kind
yeah.
of curious too, like what's your conception of the ego versus the shadow? Do you have like a method for understanding those, or what's your understanding of those?
Let me see. So, there's so many, like, in spirituality, there's so many words that get thrown around a lot. And ego is definitely one of them. And shadow would be another one. So there's like different understandings, I think, around the community of like what these words actually mean, how they differentiate. I would say, if I had to give a definition, I would say the ego is like what we were saying before, like it's your personality, it's your learned habits, it's your it's the way that you present in this reality. That's like that includes like all of your feelings about yourself, all of your judgments, so yeah, it's tricky because like sometimes it feels like shadow and ego overlap, and like are they even actually the same thing? Shadow, let's see if I can define shadow. So like if I had to define it, I would say shadows are, well, I guess there's kind of a judgment on that word too, right? Like if you consider something as a shadow, you have to first perceive it to be a shadow. And what I mean by that is like shadow being a negative aspect of yourself, a negative behavior, some kind of way that you're expressing your trauma back into the world. And so I guess I think that shadow, if I had to like really like pin it down, shadows are aspects of our ego, because there's good aspects of our ego too, right? Our ego is also a protection mechanism. So there are good and important roles of the ego. So I guess I would say like they're like shadow is like a shadow aspect of the ego. And so shadows are something that like you like I said, there's a judgment on that word. It's like we're already perceiving that as like a negative thing, like a negative behavior or a negative presentation of how you are coming into the world. But the opposite of shadow is light. And some people would say like light is what we talk about as source, as consciousness. Like in truth, at our core, that larger aspect of us is a light being. It's like we are part of the main source consciousness that is light. So I think that like your light expression is like our default as spirit. But we come into this human experience, this human body, to experience all the different dimensions, all the different possibilities that having the balance to the light brings, which is the shadow. So we don't, like, from that perspective, we don't have to consider shadow as like a dark negative thing. It's kind of just like, it's like heaviness that you've picked up along your journey. That's what I think I would describe it as. And like the ego is so I just had like
part of that to you?
I really had like a really cool like visual that like the ego is like, you remember those like that game you used to play with as kids, like I don't know if you had one, I guess this was kind of a specific thing. It's like a specific version of a game. So if you have like a mitt, like a mitt with like the Velcro or something on it, and you have, there's two people throwing, you like play catch, and you have this ball, this like the ball is also Velcro, so the ball sticks to the mitt.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that like, or what I'm seeing this visual is that like the ego is the mitt, or it's like the Velcro, and like shadow are infinite amount of balls that we can pick up like that just get stuck to us and weigh us down. And we still always have the ego, but like the shadows can be realized, and like they're usually like causing like blockages or like hindering you in some way. It's usually something that's like holding you back from like really getting what you want in life, just like my insecurities and my self-consciousness with my friend. So it's like you just like picking those little balls off of your nerve shield all the time.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to describe it, because actually then it sounds like the ego is the thing causing the blockages, and the shadow is the stuff that builds up after being blocked.
Yes, the ego is holding on to those things, or it gets trapped somehow.
Yeah.
Our egos are such fragile little babies. We have to just like make them comfortable and take care of them and love them. It's a hard life for egos. They're so sensitive.
Have you read a lot about Jungian psychology?
I love a little bit. I love Carl Jung. He inspired Alcoholics Anonymous a lot.
Oh, interesting.
He was a lot of inspiration for that movement.
Okay.
That's cool.
Okay, so in terms of so what are your shadows? How did you discover and integrate them?
Yeah, I still got to answer that part.
Well, yeah, I gave you another question before that, so.
No, I know. I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm still gonna do it. That's a hard answer to think about. I mean, like, I guess we've got into a little bit, and like, I guess I can go into a little bit more of like my backstory and like my spiritual awakening on this topic. So like, when I started becoming aware that like life is not what I thought it was, what before Kim thought it was and expected it to be and wanted from out of life. You know, I went through this dark night where it was like I slowly over time had to like concede to realize that I wasn't going to achieve things that I really wanted to achieve. Then like this was like my life goal, my life purpose at that time that I thought, which was like, you know, there are different things that I don't really usually talk that much about, but like before Kim was like pretty superficial and very and this is something I still work through, like a very focused on myself, like self self-involved, I guess. So all I wanted was to be a famous singer and like make it big, and I wanted to be like Britney Spears was the first person that I really admired as a singer. Like when she first started coming out, and she just like everybody was paying attention to her and like loving her voice and just talking about her, even if it was not like good. You know, like she was just getting all this attention, and that's what I wanted. Like when I think back on it now, like I wanted attention. I wanted to be famous. I wanted people to love me for like whatever reason, because I was beautiful, because I have a beautiful voice, and they love all these things about me, and I'm just like the perfect person, and I'm so amazing. And yeah, and like at this point it's like I've learned to turn that kind of like toxic gaping hole need for attention and love, like feeding that like hunger for attention, really. And that was like my ego wanting those things, because I could see that like, oh, she's the perfect person, she must have the perfect life. And like obviously I deserve the perfect life because I'm the best. And yeah, I was like, yeah, I've gone through so many versions of me, but like no, that's definitely part of it. Like I have had, and people are gonna watch this, they're gonna be like, I fucking knew that she thought that about herself all this time. Like, yeah, it's a thing. Like,
Are you tense thinking about that? Is that like
I am, yeah, because I am, because like, wow, people know like that I'm really this self-centered little like twit. Like, oh, nothing she does is like, it's all just for that then. Like, obviously she just still wants attention. Yeah. She
so fakey, just didn't
What'd you say?
So fakey, you know.
Fake, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will make you feel better or worse. I think it'll make you feel better though.
Okay.
There's a personality typing channel on YouTube that discusses a lot of this stuff. You know, the ego and the unconscious, and like the hero's journey, right? The moment where you're kind of forced out of your comfort zone, and you either kind of go on that journey of integrating the shadow aspects, or you find a way out of that and you get to return to your comfort zone. And something they like to say a lot of the time is that what you don't realize until you start doing that work is that everyone else can tell. Everyone else is looking and they know exactly what's going on, and you're the only one who, each one of us, right? Not just one specifically. Everyone who's wondering, it's like, oh, it's like, can everyone tell that I'm this way or that way? It's like the really obvious parts. It's like, no, you don't understand. You're the only one who's not aware of how obvious it is. Everyone else is like, oh yeah, it's like the first thing I noticed. Like, sorry.
I mean, I am a Leo rising.
Yeah. But because it's, you know, this dynamic of like ego and shadow, it's like it's natural. Every person is like kind of concerned or anxious about it. It's like, am I presenting it correctly? What am I hiding? I don't want you to see like these other parts. But like, because like the things that you're like fixated around, it's like you just so obviously revolve around them that if someone spends more than, you know, like a few minutes around you and like actually tries to observe, it's like actually the most obvious to everyone around you.
Wow.
So I hope that makes you feel better. It's like, it's not everyone's about to figure it out. Maybe if they weren't paying attention.
No, I think that they're about to figure out that I really am that way. But even like maybe they thought that about me, but like, oh, she's actually coming out and admitting it now, right?
I think that's going to be more of it. It's like, yay, she.
Oh my god. And would you think like that's a good thing about me, like knowing me and like hearing me say
mean,
all that stuff, like, you don't think, like, what I just said is, like, really cringy? Because that would be, like, my self-consciousness about that.
what would be cringy to me is if it were so obvious that that was your intention, but you like constantly denied it. It's like, no, it's like, I don't want that stuff. It's like, but please give it to me. It's I just need, this little favor, not for validation. Right? Isn't that kind of the cringy thing? Because what you're doing is like asking for something, but then like kind of cringing away from it. It's like, oh, but like I don't want to like be too direct about it, right? Like that hidden, like being secretive about it. It's like, isn't that what we usually think of as being like creepy or cringy?
Yeah.
Like,
and
you
so,
embrace it and you're like, yeah, it's like, look, I'll admit it. This is kind of what I want. Here's the pros and cons to it. Here's what I can bring. If you like that, cool. But like, I won't force myself on you. It's like, that's very like assertive in a confident and like almost comforting way. I think a little bit more. Or it's more authentic, right? So I think authentic and cringy are kind of opposites.
Yeah. So like, since now I'm like calling that out in myself, and I'm like really, really bearing that, I don't know, that perception of myself, like
you're asserting conscious control over it, and that's not going to seem cringy.
Okay. Yay. I don't think I fully answered your question though. What were we talking about?
You were talking about ego. You were talking about the shadow. So
my shadows.
It kind of fits into the shadow a little bit. It's like, you wanted like using Britney Spears as an example. It's
so I was trying to like describe like how I was before I even like became aware of spirituality at all, and like it wasn't really, I would say, until I consciously decided, like realized that it was a thing. Like I heard about shadow work, I heard that it was a thing, and I decided to make myself a journal, just like I saw on this one YouTube video, and I started asking myself these questions. So that was like me setting the attention and consciously opening up to exploring my shadows in a way that I felt was safe for me. Because that can be a tricky thing to try to do on your own. A lot of people are used to working with a therapist in some way with that kind of stuff. I've never seen a therapist. I've only ever done any of this work on my own, and I've just happened to have learned certain methods. I believe that I was guided to everything that I found, and it was specifically meant for me to get me through this process. So I opened up that consciously for myself with a journal, and I would sit down sometimes to write in it and reflect, but shadows, I realized, would come up even like when I wasn't sitting down to journal. Like they come up all the time. And part of going through this work is being present in the moment so that you're conscious and aware of when they come up. And when you see that kind of thing come up, first you stop and breathe, and you realize like what's happening. Oh, I'm experiencing a side of myself, a part of myself that until now, this moment, I was not consciously aware of. And then you start to think like, what is this? What's causing this behavior? Where is this actually stemming from? So you make a little note. What happened today? Like, what do I think about it? And then like, even if you forget, which you probably won't forget, like, I don't know, I guess like depends on what kind of stuff you have going on in your life, but like sometimes I make a note for myself to go back, and like even if it's like months later, if I like go back and find that note, I'll be like, oh yeah, I have to trace that back. And that happens too. And it doesn't matter how long it takes or when you uncover things, like that's just, it's an eternal process.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. And what, I mean, I've kind of talked about some shadows that I've uncovered. Let's see if any specific thing comes up. I mean, I kind of just told you about one. I told you about the Britney Spears one.
Yeah, and when I think what you were saying earlier too about your neighbor. I was going to say your friend, but I guess she was only your neighbor. Who didn't want to share her candy with you, right? That kind of thing, like making friends, that uncertainty. I guess a little bit about how you relate to people that way, or if you're going to be included, that's a little bit of a shadow too. Definitely.
Yeah, I would say that trauma is something that is... Trauma is like... Okay, so shadow is like the flower, trauma's the root. Right? Trauma is usually...
I don't know if I would reverse those or not, but you're right. It's like that kind of... Yeah, one brings about the other.
Yeah.
Or one creates a space for the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, I don't know, are we good on that topic? I love that question, though. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Soma79 asks, have you ever felt truly seen for who you are by another person?
Wow.
And you can't see me right now because I'm interviewing you, so it's
I can't say you? Is that what you said?
It's too on the nose. Say me, answer the question again and say me on another episode, since I'm trying to make you feel seen, so it's... Yeah.
Yeah. That's a super good question. Really, really cool. And it's really deep, if I think about it. Like, because isn't that something that, like, we all want to experience? Like, you want to be seen by someone.
Yeah. Technically, it's a yes/no question, so you could just say yes or no.
Can you read the question one more time?
Have you ever felt truly seen for who you are by another person?
Okay, so in the truest way, I would say no, not in this life experience. Because my truest self is like my full self, which is not integrated. And I guess, like, in a moment, like, maybe somebody's seen me in, like, a moment, but then again, that's only, like, one moment of me. So I guess my answer has to be no.
I mean, maybe it's a little glimpse, but I think you're right. Like, if there's still some layers to peel back, where it's like, yeah, someone saw everything, nothing to hide.
Yeah. And part of that too is, like, I mean, like, there's different levels of knowing someone too, right? Like, and you know, there's some people that I have some deep connections with and relationships with, but, like, this is something I actually reflected on this weekend a little bit too, is that, like, I haven't really been in, like, a super developed relationship with, like, a single person. I feel like I don't feel like I've been in, like, an intimate connection with someone long enough to even say, like, anyone has ever really seen, like, truly seen me. So, but okay, so my beliefs on this are that, like, Source is truly seeing me, and when we go back to source, we can truly see everyone that we want to see, everyone that we have interacted with. I believe that like we go through a life review process, and that you can actually feel a person's whole entire being in that moment, and like really truly see them from that perspective. So I guess that's like the framing that I look at this question with. But also at the same time, I haven't had enough like complex developed relationships in this lifetime to have been seen, I think. Maybe.
I think that's a really deep reading of that question. So to give a little bit, let's see if I can fish around to get a yes. If I can scale down the question a little bit, then, because I think I like your interpretation of it. That's really profound. Has there ever been a moment where you wanted to express something, and the person you were interacting with, or maybe even someone off to the side, made you feel like they could see what you were trying to express, without any of the filter or distortion from your words or your body language? Like they could just really like tap into I guess like seeing like where you were coming from.
I think I can say yes to that. And I don't know if I'd be able to like pinpoint a specific experience, but I remember moments of feeling happiness and like pride, connection with someone, being witnessed.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess I can say yes to that context.
Have you ever been able to give yourself that feeling? Like, have you ever had a moment where you like glimpse something about yourself? It's like, wow, I feel like I'm really seeing who I am for a moment.
Actually, yeah. Yeah, I feel that very often, and that will bring me to tears. That will have me sobbing. Yeah, I have that all the time with myself. Yeah.
Just recently, or like in the past, or I feel like it's more recent.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, definitely like mostly like in the past year, I would say.
Okay.
And I want to say too that I believe in the potential of those experiences. I believe in the potential of being seen, being truly seen, like by someone. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And yeah. So I think it's possible.
I hope
so. Yeah.
I mean, you're doing a podcast about what it's like to be inquiring of other people what it's like to be you. It's sort of the part of the core question of the podcast.
Yeah, you're right.
Like attempting to really like see someone, or at least share authentically in a moment with them.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and sometimes I like actually now that you like bring up that point, like I think there are like a lot of times where I think I can perceive like what people are going to, or how somebody is gonna like interpret what I put out there. I guess. And like if they'll like see it, truly see it. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. It's like you feel more tuned into like how someone is watching you, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
So that last question was also from Soma79. There's a few from him that I really liked, so we're gonna go through at least 2 or 3 more from him.
Awesome.
So, what are some things that you have had to sadly leave behind because of your spiritual journey? And by contrast, what are some things that you've gotten to happily pick up and incorporate into your life?
Wow, nice. Hmm. I don't think I fully know all of the things that I've had to leave behind yet. Well, one of the things, I mean, I would say that like a lot of I still feel attached to a lot of the hopes and desires that I've had like before Kim had. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really have wanted to like do a lot of traveling and especially go to Japan, which I had planned to go in March of 2020. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, you knew all about that. So
Yeah.
obviously, I didn't get to go, and I'm still pissed about it. um, but I hope that I'll still be able to go someday. Um, but that was okay. I think we're gonna get really deep on this one. That was a huge thing that I missed out on and was so disappointed about. That really set me on a different course and like into my dark night of the soul. That was part of it. At the same time, actually, there's something that I haven't really talked about anywhere yet. So I don't know if I've talked about it on my stream, but anyway. Um so like the week before my trip got canceled. I think it was a week before. I actually felt like I think now I think I felt like a quantum shift in reality. And that was with like a moment of big trauma for me when I was going through orthodontic treatment. And I remember the exact day. It was on Valentine's Day. And I had gotten my brackets adjusted. I had braces. And they put new brackets on my lower teeth, and they were like a little bit high. So my top teeth were hitting the brackets. And so I had to be like really conscious of like the way I would do anything with my mouth, because like it was gonna be, you know, it was gonna take time for them to move like out of the way. So there are sometimes like when I had braces, like I would just like put a piece of gum on my mouth to like keep my teeth separated, and that was like that's something that I always think back on. I'm like, why didn't I have like gum in my mouth at this moment? But like anyway, basically I had this huge traumatic moment where I just like closed my jaw, and this tooth hit the bottom bracket on my bottom teeth really hard. It was like slammed closed. And I still don't know what happened, but that was still like, I mean, I don't know like if there was damage or like whatever damage was caused by that. There wasn't like, I mean, I went and got it checked. There wasn't like a visible crack or in my tooth or anything, but it was so painful. Like this tooth still, I would say to this day, never really felt the same as it did before that happened. And I was always so like that I would say that like that moment put like a chill in my body that I haven't been able to release since that time. Because it was so painful, and like I didn't know if I was going to lose my tooth, and I like, you know, like I think you probably get the picture, like after what we'd been talking about, that I'm pretty self-conscious about my appearance and everything about me. So, and I sing. So like this was like a huge death to my ego, because I didn't know. It was painful. I didn't know what was going to happen. Living through that was daily hell. like moment by moment hell, because it was always pain and I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know, like, I had this constant fear that I was gonna, like, need a root canal in that tooth, that I was gonna have to have it pulled, and then I would, like, okay, another part of why this was so traumatizing to me is because I worked in dental for like 6 years.
Oh, interesting.
So I know a lot about, like, teeth and, like, procedures that are done to work on teeth. And I had it in my head that, like, I'm never going to look the same. I'm not going to be regular me, because, like, if I lose a tooth, like, it's like one half of my two front teeth. Like, I would never, I just wouldn't be, like, that was enough for me to be like, this isn't working for me anymore. Like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really felt that way. So, like, yeah, that's something that I haven't really talked about on length, and I always knew that I would at some point talk about this, because it was like, I still feel like it's like the worst thing I've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And even, like, telling it now, it kind of sounds like stupid and, like, minimal, but, like, and I always, that was like another insecurity I had about it, was like, why am I making a big deal about this? Like, nobody else would feel this way. Like, I'm,
No, I
like,
think
what's
a lot
wrong
of
with
people
me?
feel that way, but go on.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. Like, yeah, it was so, yeah.
If no one else would feel that way, there basically wouldn't be dentists.
It's a really good
You know,
point.
there might be, like, tooth extractors, like, oh, that one's causing you problems, just yoink. It's like, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
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 So, like, a lot of dental work is aesthetic, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So yeah, I think I would go even further. I think maybe even most people would relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you had to let go of, like, a certain sense of, like, the ability to feel comfortable or aspire to be comfortable in a certain way. That's like you said a second ago. It's like you just kind of, like, said, like, this isn't working for me. It's like, okay, sounds like you kind of just gave up on that, on having, like, a sense of stability around it.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it was like I was living in, like, a daily hell. And it was like, that's what it kind of came down to, is like, how do I find a way to feel comfortable in this extreme discomfort? I feel like, yeah, that was one of the darkest things for me. And I know people go through way darker things. Like, I know that. And this is just, like, how it presented for me. Because of my experiences of who I am and what I've been through, this is the experience for me that caused, like, the biggest trauma in my life, I would say. In a relative sense. So, okay, can you remind me of the question again?
So yeah, what are some things that you have had to sadly leave behind because of your spiritual journey? What are some things you've gotten to happily pick up and incorporate into your life?
Okay, so yeah, that's been part of my spiritual journey, is going through that discomfort and learning to, I mean, I was stuck in it, but, like, learning to sit through that discomfort. What's the other option? I just leave and I quit? Like,
Yeah.
no. So that was part of the spiritual work. Spiritual work was just, like, just having to live through that and decide that whatever my purpose is here for being on Earth is more important than this discomfort, than this really difficult discomfort, daily living through it and not knowing why or where this is gonna go. So yeah, I would say like I had given up like a sense of certainty. In a sense, that's one thing.
Around certain things, but on the other hand, you have your power of belief to be chasing things. So you
well, yeah, on this side of it, yes. On this side of it, yes, but like when I
as you were going through it though, yeah.
yeah, and that's a huge part of this is that like you let go of things, and that is a huge test of faith because you have to let go, like not knowing. Like that's that's done. Like that era is done. And I was forced to let go of my comfort in that situation. Yeah. That was, I mean, one of the harder parts about that instance is that like I would like when I'd get wrapped up in my mind about this, like trying to blame someone for this, because I wanted to blame my orthodontist. I wanted to blame him because, you know, I won't get into the reasons, but if I do actually trace it back, like I made the decision to go and get orthodontic treatment when I didn't really even have to do that. That was a completely elective thing, and I had definitely like would get down on myself about that, and I would be like, if I just didn't do that, like why the hell did I even do that? I didn't even need it. Like, and I would just get really down on myself. But I like that's something I leave behind too. Like I can't get down on myself about that now because I know what it was for.
Yeah.
I know, like, in the big picture that I needed to go through that and that now I'm stronger because of it. And I want to say, too, that, like, gradually over time, my tooth has started to feel a lot better. There was never any, like, damage that, like, could be found. So that's a positive. Yeah. It was confusing at the time because I was like, sure, like something's going on here. And by the way, too, I want to say that like, I think that I consciously decided to heal my body, and like that's made a huge impact on being able to actually heal that. I know that it's healing because I can specifically feel that healing when I do breathing exercises, when I do the Wim Hof breathing. When I hold the breath out, I feel like tingling all through like my gums and like my bone structure up here, and like I know that like I can feel that's what's happening because it's with my intention. And yeah, so I know that I'm healing myself, and that's a new superpower that I have, and something that I have gained from going through the spiritual work.
Do you want to comment on anything else that you've gotten to happily incorporate into your life going on because of your spiritual journey? So you mentioned the healing, right? But is there, or I guess on either end, anything else you want to add about that?
Yeah, we can move on to the good part. So I would say like the most valuable, like probably the best thing that I can point out right now is the confidence. Like it's not always consistent, but like I feel a lot more confident in my the way I present in conversation in the world, and like I'm always gonna have like, okay, I'm not, let me rephrase that. I'm always gonna be working through shadows and finding new little quirks of myself, and like ways that I'm holding myself back. And I'm sure there's still ways that I am, like, you know, daily, because I'm still working through it. So yeah, it's like I definitely gave up certainty because I never know what's going to be around the next corner. And I've gained confidence in and faith in knowing that I am guided and nothing could possibly go wrong. It's like famous last words, right? But no, I really feel that like there's no point in like worrying about things because yeah, there's a higher plan for everything and I trust it and that gives me confidence.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a couple more from Soma79. So,
Okay.
This one is, he states, I am just learning to stand up for myself when someone hurts me. Any tips on doing so in a way that is fair to both myself and the other person?
That's an awesome question, and it's something that I'm also learning right now too. So, tips on how to stand up for yourself, right?
Yeah, any tips on doing so in a way that is fair to both myself and the other person? Standing up for yourself when someone hurts you.
So you just sent me a video, and I just watched it a little bit earlier today. And I'm thinking back to that video. How to win at the game of life or something. Yeah.
Earth School, yeah, what's the game?
Yes.
How do you win?
Yeah. So my answer comes from just recently watching that. And it is that we should be always striving to come from a place of love and like unconditional love. And the way to do that, it takes practice and it really takes like knowing yourself and feeling yourself and knowing how to feel, how to breathe and center yourself. And my friend also gave me a really good tip yesterday. I asked her, how does she protect her energy? And this fits in too.
That was another question someone asked, by the way. How do you protect your energy?
Perfect. I just learned how. And this also like opened up my perspective on a lot of other things too. Like so cool. So my friend told me that just like try to visualize the light inside yourself that you are and allow yourself to feel into that and let it coat your being. And also like just let yourself like glow. So that's protecting you, and at the same time it's also like softening your aura. It's like softening around you to set your intention to be part of everything and like bring in the highest good that you possibly can. That's what I kind of feel from that. Yeah. And clear communication is like not really a spiritual thing, but like that makes everything a whole lot easier.
Any tips on doing so?
Yeah. Clear communication is something that you have to be intentful about. If you don't have the intention for clear communication, then you don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's really helpful to go in with the intention from the beginning, even before something happens, before any disagreement happens. It's so helpful to like have this intention as you walk through life, and like set intentions. Like I just started segment intending, like as a consistent practice. Even if you just set the intention for the day, like I do with "Thy will be done." Even if you just set that intention, like sometimes you'll come back to that throughout the day. Intention is such a powerful thing. So if you intend for clear communication, then you can open up the whole situation to what everybody needs to express in the moment, and let that person know that like you're listening, you want to hear what they what they have to say about it, how they feel. And
so if you wanted to set in... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like just considering like we talked about, like everybody, like we're interacting with other humans, having we're interacting with other spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have to consider that their feelings, their experience is valuable and important, and we have to honor them. Okay. Sorry.
So if you wanted, you mentioned coming at a situation from a place of unconditional love. So if you wanted to set an intention to react to other people throughout the day with unconditional love, is there a way of visualizing that, or how would you, or is it enough to just think about, just kind of repeat those words, or maybe as a mantra, like I'll approach people from a place of unconditional love, is that enough, or can you drill down into that a little bit more?
So it's going to help a lot to say that I was doing that as I was explaining it, or as I was like explaining like the visualizing your light, your soul. And I felt such, like, I almost didn't want to come out of that, because that like almost really took over. I felt so comfortable. I felt so much love. If you just open up to that space and like realizing that it is possible to feel things like that, and allowing it to be felt, just that can bring you into that intention, because that is love. Like, you are love.
Okay, so just taking a moment to breathe, reconnect to that, and then treat the other person like another spiritual being having a human experience. Is that a fair way to sum up your answer?
Yeah.
So I've got a sub question on this one. If you could replay, knowing what you know now, right, approaching the situation on how to do that when someone hurts you, standing up for yourself in a way that's fair to both yourself and the other person, if you had to replay that interaction from your younger self, asking for a piece of candy from your neighbor and being rejected, right, and hurt by it, is there a certain way that you would replay that scenario?
Coming from a place of love?
Yeah, using your tips to stand up for yourself in a way that is fair to both yourself and the other person. Or is there an analog that where it could happen again today, where you would be able to put that into practice? Can you like give us the 30 or 60 second role play version of that?
Yeah. That's such a cool question. And yeah, it was kind of like difficult to think about like going back to change like that interaction. I don't know. I guess I got like a little bit wrapped up in the like, I don't know, maybe that's like pointless to think about because it's already happened, and like I learned from it the way it happened and whatever. Yeah. But like,
okay, so I mean, let's proceed off of that then. Let's say you have a new friend and they've got
a treat that you really like, and you ask for some, and they say, "No, this is for someone else." Let's assume that the people you know have enough social grace not to say this is only for my friends, straight to someone's face. They say it's like, "No, this is intended for someone else," and you go, "Oh, but I mean, since you know me, why wouldn't you intend it for me? Since it's clearly one of my favorite things." Can you sort of like connect to that situation a little bit? Like, how would you?
That's kind of hard because, like, yeah, I would like probably take that a little bit personally, like if I wasn't in like a higher perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that's the point. So it would be natural and human to feel hurt in that same situation again,
Yeah.
especially given that it's a specific way you were traumatized deeply in the past.
Yeah.
So I mean, being rejected kind of unfairly in that way, could you kind of walk us through a little bit how you would what the first thing would be that you might do to kind of stand up for yourself?
Well, I feel like, I don't know, in that situation, like, because they said it wasn't, like, meant for me, so I wouldn't, like, I wouldn't push them. Like, I would just, like, take their word for it, like, oh, they have another purpose for this, like, all right, well, think of me next time you do it, okay? Because I really like that creme brulee, and, you know, that looks really, really good. And I'm, like, drooling over here, and now you're just gonna give it to someone else. Like, okay, but, like, just think of me next time, okay? I don't know. Like, what was that? Was that weird?
No. That's a good answer. That's a really good answer. As you're saying it, I like the detail about the creme brulee, and I'm smiling because I'm realizing I could really dial up the situation. You want me to?
Oh God!
You want me to like really like aim for the heart?
No.
Okay. Fair enough. No, that's a good answer. So even if I tried to add more details to make it feel like more real and like and pointed, I think what you said would still be kind of like the right approach. Maybe you'd have to like grab onto the idea a little bit harder. I really liked what you said specifically about like just focusing on the fact that it's okay that they have a different intention for that thing or that action, and like being able to just like not even like erase your own desire for it. It's like maybe just like this suggestion or like this request, this bid for, would you think of me next time, because I like that kind of thing too. It's like instead of suppressing your desire or like blaming them or like being like sitting in your hurt, you decide, I'll just share something about myself. is kind of how it came out. Yeah, so I think that's a good response. I like that.
Cool. Yay. That was fun.
Okay, I'll stop torturing you on that. Yeah, creme brulee.
It sounds like Kimberly almost.
It does sound like Kimberly almost.
Yeah.
Okay, so sticking on the interpersonal relationships topic a little bit. This is a last question I'm going to ask, I think for now, from Soma79. But it's something that I have been thinking about for like the last year and a half, maybe even like a couple years, like really intensely. So I'm glad he asked the question. Now I can ask it. How do you differentiate between interpersonal love and romantic love? Do humans have unrealistic expectations for romantic love?
Oh my God. First of all, I am in no way qualified to answer that question, but I'm gonna give my...
You're a spiritual being.
I'm gonna...
Human experience, so just share your human experience about this.
Yes, okay. I'm
not gonna let you cop out. How dare you?
No, I'm not. That's just how I was prefacing my answer. Okay, Brendan. Sorry. Okay. So...
Not everyone has to be enlightened after you give this answer. Just what are your thoughts on this?
Alright. So I think... So interpersonal love versus romantic love. I feel like I am again gonna reference that video you sent me that I watched this morning. Romantic. Well, either way, I mean, I think especially romantic love, the way that we chase it as humans, it's not gonna fulfill you in the way that you want it to. Like, yes, we're all co-creating this reality together. Everybody wants to be seen. And we're at a point in time where we're all trying to learn. Well, I guess people go through this generally in life anyway. Like, we're all trying to learn how to express true love, real love, like love from source and spirit. So that's like learning that's a constant learning process for me. And it's definitely a big part of my focus. Just learning to express love and hold love for others. And so when I think about love now, I really think about God. I think about source. That's like the OG love, right? And like, I feel like the only way we really experience like real love, like that kind of love, is like funneling it through, like direct from source to another person. And that's how like you can feel love coming at you. But I think that like you can't ask to be loved, and you can't expect to be loved by other humans. Everybody has their own interpretation of what love really is. And I think like I really love the idea of like romanticism, like being romantic and like being in a romantic relationship. Like, it's cute, it's fun, it's like makes you feel young again, all this stuff. And like, you know, that's what all the songs are about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing to it, but that like it's something like whatever we can find in this life to give us those feelings, that's just a vessel. And like when you're in love with a person and you have a relationship, it's like you're creating your own sacred vessel to experience love in. That's like a sacred union. That's what I would say is like the deepest, most intimate way that you could feel love in this world. I guess that's when we're talking about romantic love. Of course, there are other forms of love that like really profound love that maybe I wouldn't be able to describe to you. I'm sure like there's some scenes in movies that could really nicely portray like a scene of just like somebody doing something so, what they would say, like selfless for another person or something like that. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're all different kinds of loving actions and loving relationships, like other than romantic.
I think that's a good take on interpersonal love.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if I was totally like cohesive, but I don't know. I kind of jumped around a lot. I do that a lot.
I think you went through that question in a pretty linear way, actually. But did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think I'm satisfied with that.
Satisfied?
Maybe another time get more into love.
I think actually the other questions that I marked from Summa 79 you kind of already touched on. I'm just going to read the questions as a way of asserting that I think you did answer them.
Okay.
So I think you did answer, how do you protect yourself from bad energy? That's actually the one I referenced earlier, that I think you were answering at the same time as another one. Right, with the protective aura, just like getting back in touch of that visualization.
I would like to elaborate on that a little bit, just like quickly.
Okay.
That like I feel like after my friend told me this light thing, like I feel like I've, like, just from yesterday, I feel like I've come into like a new understanding of it, in that like anything you do to protect or like or connect with spirit, or just like enhance this like spirituality at all in any way, just think of it as like you're working with this physical apparatus, and you're trying to manipulate the apparatus into a different way of being. So all you really have to think about is like ways that you can like trick yourself, I guess is not a great word, but like through the senses, like how you can sensorially elevate. Like sometimes that's why people sometimes smudge, like with a smoke, like the scent will just like kind of bring you into a different kind of, it's not like the smoke is not doing anything, like you're not chasing ghosts away. It's like you're breathing in that vibe, and then you're matching that vibe with your body, and that can bring you into a more like spiritual place. And I feel like visualization is another kind of way to like manipulate that. So when you can get really into like a visualization, that again is just like working with the body to like bring in more sensation, or like change the sensation that you're even able to experience. So that's that.
Yeah. And we talked about, I think in our last interview, about like higher vibration and lower vibration. And I feel like when people say bad energy, what they're really referring to is like that lower vibration stuff, the stuff that like brings you down and makes you feel heavy. So everything you're saying about like just getting something to like where you can match a different vibration, or like these visualizations that help you get back in touch with your higher self or with source, is raising your vibrational energy again. Right? So it's just kind of marching straight through the bad energy, right? Not letting yourself, doing these things to help pick yourself back up rather than getting stuck down, I guess, by the lower vibrations.
Yeah, and something I really want to like make clear is that like before, like I would have the tendency to like, I mean, even like before yesterday, literally, like all this kind of like waving smoke around or something like that, or like using crystals even, is like kind of like a woo-woo thing. Like it's not really, I perceived it as a woo-woo thing, I guess, because I was thinking of it as something like that that it's something that I'm doing to try to manipulate the energy around me, or try to like, I don't know, do something outside of myself. Because crystals, like smoke, that would actually be like outside, like I'm staging the apartment, whatever. But really, it's like, it's the way we take these aids through the senses that really has the potential to like change things like vibrationally.
Yeah.
Like make an adjustment.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that way it's not woo-woo. It's like your body is made for this. This is a very highly advanced technology that we are using, and it's a huge gift.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. So yeah, that was one of the questions I thought you answered. I think you also already kind of answered or touched on, how do you approach the world and love with an open heart but not leave yourself too vulnerable?
Mm.
Um, Also, do you recall any specific moments in your life when you felt the presence of a higher power or your higher self? Maybe you didn't answer that one as directly.
Mm.
Um, and then the last one I thought you kind of touched on it a little bit was, what is something you doubted heavily at first but came around to believe in? I think when you were talking about a lot of shadow things, there was a lot of, you already touched on a lot of going through doubt and finding, right, the things that you could actually anchor to.
Yeah. I guess I would say, and also like touching back on probably the one I maybe didn't totally answer was like the experiencing spirit and my higher self. Um, I don't think I actually went. I don't. I can't remember if I actually described this experience like after we started filming or if I just told you before. But like when I actually had that experience when I was feeling into my friend's energy, and I let myself really relax and like feel that love. Like my higher self is definitely there, like facilitating that. And I feel like that's always like your higher self is like think of it as like well this kind of really breaks people's brains sometimes when they hear it. I know it broke mine, but
Mm-hmm.
the life you're living now is just one of the lives that you're living right now. And if you think of it as like your life is like the leg of a spider, your higher self is the spider's body.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And say like if the spider was like communicating with other spiders, that would be like our higher selves are all together, they perceive each other and they know what's going on, they have like the higher knowledge of like what's really happening here. So it's kind of how I see like my higher self.
Spider. That's kind of creepy. Spider.
It's kind of creepy, but yeah, I mean, we're like the leg of a higher being. We're like one tentacle, if you want to say.
Right.
We're like
Yeah, I
one
get what you're saying. Though.
aspect.
It's like, yeah, there's some coordination to those parts, even though they might be a little bit further away from, yeah, I guess the core or the source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so we did answer all those, all right? You were ready to move on to.
I'm ready to move on because it's a lot of them are the theme of managing your energy and connecting with your higher self and source and embodying that unconditional love, right? How you use that energy going through life, the progression from doubt or leaving things behind. So some of these are similar, and I like the clarifications you made, right? The nuance you added, but I think we have explored those topics.
Cool.
So I'm going to ask one more question from someone who wrote in and was asking you about the shift in your recent posts, right? On I see them on Instagram. And after a brief interaction where you just clarified what you've been up to and what you've been thinking about, they replied that makes sense. Never been that much into spirituality. What advice would you give someone just starting out?
Yeah, I loved that question. Like, I can't really know anyone else's experience, but the best general advice I think is just kind of like, I mean, if you're watching this, like, you must be a little bit curious. And so I would say to you, if you wanted advice from me, just feel into your body, open yourself up to shifting out of out of your comfort zone, because a lot of the times we get stuck feeling comfortable in our discomfort. But we come here to be more than that. If you, like, you know, to be really honest, like, we come here to be just like what I've been saying, like, infinite possibilities. Like, anything is possible. Like, your like most wild hopes and dreams, that's what you're here for. You're here to see everything around you and decide what of that you want, or what doesn't exist that you want to create. And that's what you're here for. And like, that's how you know, like, that's possible. That's what I would say to you. Like, why would you be here without a purpose, like, just to feel miserable and like be stuck in a shitty job that you don't even like, and like you're just on the rat race wheel and hamster wheel, and like nothing's ever working out? Like, no, it's time to, like, it's time for you to really see your life for what it is, and ask yourself, like, what is comfortable, what is not comfortable, and what am I just like living through day to day that I don't, like, why am I doing this to myself? And it's like, I feel like until you come to that point, like, that's the point where you can really start to grow from. And then when you get there, I would say try to trust and believe that you're guided, and that you're going to be given the stepstones, like the next step in your journey. It's going to present itself to you when you're ready. So as long as you're open and trusting and have faith, your journey is going to just present itself to you. And the best things that are for you are at the end of that path. Like, they're coming to you and you're making your way. If you're following that journey that is presented to you by spirit, like, everything's working out. Like, you're gonna see things. And something that really, like, helped me practice my faith in the beginning was, of course, like, listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and I got some of these practice from them. And that's just like learning, like, feeling into your attraction abilities. Like, play around with, like, where you put your focus, and, like, sit on that for a while, and then see what presents itself to you. You're gonna find that where you put your focus is what continually comes to you. That's like, Abraham has, like, one of those, like, stories that they always tell, which is like, if you think about blue glass, like all different kinds of blue glass, and you just focus on that for a long time, like, you probably feel really called to go into a store and you'll see, oh, they have a whole wall of blue glass stuff. Like, it just presents itself in your reality. That's like kind of one of the big ways that just you can practice your faith, and you can kind of believe in some way, like, this is, like, I have a little bit of, like, you know, say in this. Like, it's putting your focus on something is almost like putting out a prayer to experience that thing. So yeah, play around with that, and that will build your faith in a very stable way, I think, over time.
That's a solid answer.
Yeah.
I think that is a good place to wrap up the listener questions. We have some that we didn't get to, but I think we can save them for another time, or you can save them for another time, or maybe do some shorts answering some questions. But I think we have definitely gotten to experience a little bit more from your perspective, what it's like to be you. And so if you're ready and satisfied, I'd like to ask you the closing out questions.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Like we could do a part 2 if you're open to it, or I can just you can send me the list of questions, and I'll just like maybe I'll do like a short or something. Okay, and like I said before too, like going forward with the podcast, like off season, I'm gonna be probably producing different kinds of content. So I would say like that, like at least focusing on those questions could be like one of the things that I do. And I also really want to like come out to people with more of like my spiritual journey and learnings in the moment. So I feel like I'm always open to questions. So like I do want to say, like, if you ever have a question for me, yeah, definitely feel free to like send me a message or like comment on my videos. Any way that you want to try to get in touch with me, like I'm very reachable at this point. I mean, I don't know like if that's gonna change if I end up getting like a whole lot of messages. Like I might not be able to get to everyone, but at this point I'm pretty reachable, I would say.
Okay, so get your questions in quick. Get them in first while there's not a
yeah. Oh, you're really setting the demand, Brendan.
No, I'm a coach. I'm a call to action person these days. All right. Well, with that, then, let's go through our wrap-up questions. What are you here on Earth right now for? Not to do, but what are you here to experience or learn?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of that already, but like let's see. Yeah, and I kind of wanted to like get a little bit into like my thought behind these questions too, because these are the questions that I ask everyone at the end of my episodes.
It's like to be us.
Yeah. What am I here for? I think I'm here for the fun of it. I'm here for fun. I'm here to see how far I can go, how big I can get, how much I can do, how much of an impact I can have, how much beauty I can like take in, and how much beauty I can project, and how much I can love. I'm here to explore that infinite potential for myself. So that's my answer to that one.
That's a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
What can we expect to see from you in the golden future of humanity? What is your role in our transition to higher consciousness?
I'm gonna keep podcasting, keep evolving, and I'm going to enjoy it all. I hope. I know, I'm sure there'll be like difficult challenges along the way. But I want to say, like, I feel like my faith is so strong now that I can see myself making it through, like, whatever comes along. So, yeah, what do I see my role as? I'm here to... I think I've heard the word, like, way shower a lot. Like, I have a little bit of that, I think, like, showing people the way. I've also heard I'm here to open the door, which I still don't fully know what that means. Like, I'm here to open the door for people and like make them feel welcome and at home and comfortable, something like that. But those are just a couple of the things that I've like heard in messages, and and they resonate a lot. So yeah, it's always, it's like I'm learning more and more every day, every time I feel into it. Like, what am I here for, and like what's my role in transitioning to higher consciousness. I feel like I've got a head start, so I'm definitely here to like show people how to do it more comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
And easier.
That really resonated when you said you're the one who's here to open the door. Like, I got not exactly shivers, but it's just like that really felt like really grounding in a good way. It's like that's totally it. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because your answer about what advice would you give someone just starting out, you didn't say read this book, read that book, build this skill, learn this thing about yourself. It was just the most simple, like, kind of meet yourself where you're at kind of answer. And you said it was to, once you kind of get into that, you'll start, just be open to following the path. So like it really felt like you were describing just like opening, how someone can open the door for themselves or see where the door is. So that really stood out when you said that.
Wow, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Which is so funny, because then you said it's like you weren't really sure what that meant, but after you said it's like, oh yeah, that's for sure it's like almost everything you're doing. So I hope you keep exploring that. It will be interesting to see how your understanding of that evolves.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your highest, brightest vision of the future without worrying about how to get there?
This question is really hard for a lot of people, because, and I think it's a little bit less hard for me, because I feel like most people are so, you know that saying, like, be in the world and not of it? So many people are like of this world, and they see so vividly what's around them and what's happening in the world, and there is a lot of chaos happening and disorder. And when you're seeing that right in your face, like how the news shows us every day, I mean, if you watch the news, but I think some people are really starting to realize and like come out of that, like needing to like be informed in that way. But yeah, if you watch the news, it's like constantly in your face, like everything that's wrong with the world, right? My highest and brightest vision for the future, and I will say, like, this is, I include my lifetime, like my human lifetime. I envision, like, oh, this gets me really emotional. I just see, like, people seeing things like this, things like me coming out and talking to you like this, and it just like opens up your heart and makes you realize that like we're really all like, we're all in this together. And I see that, like, I see people seeing that. I see more and more people seeing that. So I really think that we have a potential to come together and correct everything that we've been, all these mistakes that we've made, conscious or unconscious, and we can all see each other for like actually really all being in this together. Like, we are the human race. We are here to support each other and learn from each other and grow together. And my vision is that we can all come together in support of each other and leave behind this just like I guess like toxic kind of environment that we've created, which like I don't like to draw attention to, but it's there. We can't ignore it. But it's like anything, it's like with shadow work, like we can see, like we're starting to see and uncover like how we are now, why we are the way we are, like what got us here. And people who focus on everything that's gone wrong and all the mistakes, it's time for you to remember, like, most of these things, like, or a lot of these things, like, the, like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? The sequence of events started long before like we were even born. All the people who started like all the suffering that's happening now are dead. They're not here anymore. So like we don't have, like, those people aren't here for us to hate and to begrudge and to shake our finger at. Like there's no one here for you to blame all the problems on. And you can't fix a problem from a problem-oriented place. You have to all come together and support each other in love and come to a solution-oriented place all together and see that all of this like grudge holding and hate is not getting us anywhere. So I think the first thing that we need to focus on is forgiveness. And I can see us, like, I don't see how we're gonna get there, like the question says, but I can see us coming into more like tight-knit communities and building from there, and like knowing your neighbors, everybody, like forming communities around each other and like supporting each other in ways that like you're not necessarily depending on like monetary gain or even like a fair trade, like, because spirit takes care of that. When you give from the heart and you give because you know you're meant to give and you find joy and pleasure in that and what you're doing, you are compensated for that in different ways. It's not always like monetarily, and it's not always like getting payback from the same person. So I feel like when a lot more people realize that, people will feel more comfortable and less lackful in living their true purpose, and they'll be more motivated to actually live in a loving, supportive environment like that. It's like we're coming out of that like place of lack and into a beautiful, open, supportive place of just everyone like understanding, and our all of our psychic abilities are developing at this point too. Like, my experience the other day was so new and so exciting, and I know that's like just the beginning. And I know that's just the beginning for me, and other people are farther along, and there's other people that still have farther to go. But the collective is elevating. And I feel like we're all going to be on like some kind of super empathic level pretty soon that we cannot comprehend from where we are right now. And that's coming fast. So that's like part of my vision of the future. I think when we where we end up is just like, okay, you know what? Actually, there's something that I always see. I feel like, I don't know. I guess I feel weird like mentioning this, but for myself, I see myself becoming like a very like respected and cared for like elder. So I don't know. I guess like anybody could want that. That's like a beautiful thing. But I would feel really fulfilled if that was like really what ended up happening for me.
That's such an interesting visual, contrasted with what you were talking about before, like the this aspiration to kind of like take on like embrace like an older, more experienced role. Like that's kind of where your higher vision of yourself is now. Interesting.
Yeah, way different than it was before. So funny.
There's a lot to unpack there if I got into it, so I won't say anything. I like everything you said, though. That's it. I hope I feel the same thing, though. I think we are moving towards a more empathetic, collectiveness. So I hope that happens sooner rather than later. What traditions do you value and honor enough to pass on to the next generation?
Yeah, so this is one of my new questions that I just added on to ask everyone at the end of my interviews. I haven't asked the previous season of guests, but going forward, I'm going to be asking my guests this. So I think, I don't know, like podcasting is a new tradition I'd like to pass on. But in that, like, I think, like, honestly, the most important tradition I can think of is, like, storytelling. Like, and just, like, the vibe of, like, there's, like, campfires sitting around, like, telling a story and everybody's listening and, like, yeah. Storytelling.
Okay. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on that, or?
Well, I'm sure there are more things too. I don't know if I want to like point out other traditions. Like, I don't know. I feel like traditions that we've lost are things that I am more passionate about, like bringing back in to our like present time. Like, just like coming together, like even in a place where you would be telling stories, because sometimes, like, where do you find that space even?
Yeah.
I'd like to see like a more intimate sense of community come back that we can pass on as like a human tradition to the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's something interesting too that I okay. Oh my god, I really want to talk about this. So there's like a saying that like kind of came into my awareness recently, where it's like, it takes a village to raise a child. Right? And like, if you kind of think about that, like, what child in this present time has a village to like help them get through all the crap that they're going through at this time? It's crazy. Like, kids must feel so alone. And I wish we could, and I want to inspire communities where like kids have like such a supportive like foundation that they wouldn't even like question that. I mean, we all go through growth through like personal experience and sometimes trauma. But I think that for kids, it's important to have a safe space where they're very supported and like they know people and like, like not like, that this thing started where like people like tell your kids like don't talk to strangers. But like, why is anybody in your community a stranger? Like you should know your community.
Mm-hmm.
We've just evolved at such a like, not like consciously evolved obviously, but like the human experience has evolved at such a rapid pace that like we couldn't really catch up consciously. It's kind of just like we got all spread out and separated and everybody got lost because we lost track of like what we're really here for.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say on that was like, I'm interested in taking the podcast in a new direction eventually. Maybe not right away, but I want to start like visiting communities who are living like really close-knit, like village kind of communities. And interviewing those people and seeing how they live and how they support each other.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention like that may be a future offshoot of the podcast.
What is the meanest thing anyone's ever said or done to you? And could you find a way to forgive them
now? Yeah, when I wrote that question, I thought I was thinking about how I would answer it, but I don't think I really knew that I would kind of go outside of it and say, like, I don't believe anything is done to me. I think that, okay, well, I guess if I'm thinking of it from, like, a spiritual perspective, like, nothing's done to me. I chose this life, I chose this experience and this existence. So, like, I can't really, like, from that perspective, I can't really blame anyone for, like, doing something, like, mean to me.
Or what did you say last time? No one else can affect your reality, or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, you can't create in someone else's reality.
That was it. You can't. I wasn't gonna remember the real thing.
Yeah. So that would be my my asshole answer to that question, I guess. What's the meanest thing anyone's ever said or done to me, and would I be able to forgive them now?
Yeah.
I would say, like, it's coming to me on, like, a general level, like, the meanest thing anyone has ever done to me has been to, like, misunderstand me. And judge me. And, wow. Like really think into that. I'm doing that to myself every single day, every moment of every day. Because I always think about that. I always think about like what judgment like is coming at me from like, oh, but like probably every answer in this podcast, I'm like, oh, somebody would think this about what I just said, or I mean, it's like, yeah, it's like it is like projecting like someone else's, like my understanding of someone else onto me. And then actually in that sense, it's kind of like a weird infinity loop where again, like I'm judging another person about their judgment towards me, my perceived judgment that they have towards me. So it's like a really crazy like loop that I just get stuck
in the loop.
Yeah. How do you get out of that?
How do you get out of it? Yeah, so it's I guess forgiving them, but or yeah. So how could you forgive them, or
Well,
how do you exit the loop?
I think that is a good thing to realize that we're on this loop. You're on Life is cyclical. We're on this never-ending cycle, and we're always come back around in some way. So I think that the trick for something with that would be to realize that it's an eternal process. Eternal work in process. That's what I always say. Like, we're a work in process all the time. Like, I can notice things about me just like that in an instant. And now I could just like develop a practice where now I have to consciously remind myself and forgive myself. That's part of the question, right? Like, can I forgive myself? That's it, right? Like, I need to. That's like the meanest thing that I do to myself every day. And when I find that forgiveness for myself and I make a practice of it to notice my behavior and continually keep forgiving myself for slipping into that behavior again.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the perpetual cycle of personal involvement, right? It's like you keep finding these ways that like you're holding yourself back, and then you release it, and then you forgive yourself for, because it's not, it's just something that you picked up like automatically. That's the human part, and we have to forgive that part.
Well, so what's can you say a little bit more about the releasing part? How do you release it? How do you just let go of it?
It's just like how I came into experiencing that friend's energy. It's just you have to. It's not. It's kind of like just a realization it's not really going to be conscious at first. It's just going to come to you, and then when you realize it, that's when you take the time to reflect on it, see it for what it is, and like really sink into that feeling and that emotion and feel through it. That's like how they tell you to deal with trauma too. Like, when you're trying to heal trauma, you go back to the moment, you feel what you felt in that moment, and you just let that feeling pass through you. And so I think like when you can really sit with what you've just realized, sit in that discomfort, also just like I did through my whole spiritual awakening, like with my tooth being uncomfortable all the time, that was like a constant discomfort that I had to learn to sit with. I guess that's probably how I learned, like, that's how you do it. You gotta sit with this, and that's how you get through it.
Before, while it was bugging you, were you not sitting with it before? Because it sounded really traumatizing while that was going on. So what was...
Yeah. So in the moment it was traumatizing, and like for years after it was just like kept repeating.
Yeah.
I didn't.
So were you sitting with it that whole time? Like, was that just part of the process of sitting with it, or?
No, I mean, of course, no. I wasn't just sitting with it the whole time. I was trying to escape. I was like tensing my body. You know, when you're not feeling an emotion, it's like your body. You can feel that tension in your body somewhere for some reason. You're like, what am I holding on to? Oh, I'm not letting myself feel this thing. And usually that's like the telltale sign, because all through my like my 20s, I was tense all the time. It's because I wasn't letting myself feel anything.
Back in 2020, you were tense all the time. I have actually, now that you mention it, I haven't heard you mention anything about like neck, shoulder. Like, I can't even say apart because you haven't talked about it in forever. But it used to be like everything neck, shoulders, back.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, I forgot about that. That's how long it's been.
Yeah, and that's such a good way to show and say that, like, the cause of dis-ease in the body is holding on to traumas and feelings that you weren't able to sit with. Your body's holding on to that. That's why I feel like somatic pain, like therapies, release like that are so, like, I've never done a thing like that, but I've had an experience. I've had plenty of experiences with release, like I've kind of described. Releasing tension, releasing things I've been holding on to for years, even decades. So it's like when you're holding on to these things for so long, that's killing you. Faster than you would be dying if you weren't holding on to that stuff.
I mean, we do make a distinction between being killed and aging.
Yeah.
So
You will age faster though when you're holding on to that stuff. So that's just like a way of like
yeah,
killing you.
that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are our wrap-up questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to you
Wow.
to wrap up and do the outro. Thanks for
We
having
did
me
it.
on again. Yeah, we did it. We made it to the end.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me on again. It was very fun being able to present these questions and add my own. And yeah, just get to hang out with you and find out a little bit more.
Thank you, Brennan. I'm so grateful for you to just come in and do this with me. Like, yeah, like I said, I really couldn't think of a better person, and
Oh.
yeah. I appreciate you so much.
Can we, on that note, can we just close out with you restating what your spirit mission is, or you know what I'm talking about? Like when I think a bit ago, like a few weeks ago, I asked you, it's like, what is your tribe here to do? And you mentioned it already, I think, a little bit. But do you know what I'm referring to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of asked you directly as though I didn't have any clue, and you gave me back like a very like crisp, like one line answer that summed it up. So maybe we can just close out by saying that, and then you can do the other outro.
Ooh. Okay. I'll try to remember what I said.
What's our mission? What are we here to do?
We're elevating the collective consciousness to bring more light and love in and bring everybody together in a more positive way. And we're here to open the door for people to help everyone to feel like welcome in this life and to move through it more, like to experience the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You added a couple more things, so I pulled it up. Your reply to me was, in general, to raise the vibration and show people how to come together in peace. But having fun too, why not?
Yeah. I love it, and I love our mission. It's so beautiful and so powerful. Makes me feel so good and excited. All right, so maybe I'll just conclude this now then. I kind of wanted to like pull a card for myself, which I actually kind of accidentally left one here. Well, I was putting the cards away from my last reading, and I actually closed up the box and I realized, oh, I missed a card. There's one card left, so I'm taking that as the card.
Yeah, let's see it.
So this is the goddess card. The goddess cards? Actually, this is a card deck designed by a friend that I know in person. Well, and it's a really cool deck. It's like very like feminine energy.
Mm. Oh, I
Excuse
couldn't
me.
tell. Yeah.
Yeah. So the card
Goddess
that
cards, feminine. Weird.
so this is the card that was left for me. It's Mother Fire, and I'll read into the meaning of what this is. So I just know that fire is wands. So like that's like creative passion, energy, and the mother would be like the queen of Queen of Wands. So this says the mother fire represents, or could be like an energy of a woman who is mature and immature in the ways of action, taking control or responsibility in the place of action and expression. I mean, I mean, like there's not anything else to say, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and an elder supported by the community, maybe.
Yeah. I love it. I love this conversation. I feel like when I watch this over again, I'm gonna be like, wow. Do I even want to share this? Like, oh my god. All right, so I'll conclude this episode. I'll just
Okay.
speak to the viewers. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. This was a big one for me. I hope you enjoy, and definitely let me know what you thought in the comments, and let me know like what you're most looking forward to that I'm gonna be doing in the future, or what do you want to see me do. So let me know. So excited to have you here, and looking forward to evolving together on this journey. So, thank you. Bye.
Kimomu walks through dreams at night, reflections glow in pale moonlight. Timmy person leads the way, guided by the spirit's ray. Whispers float on autumn breeze, mystic words among the trees. Timmy nudges stars above, kimomu falls light of love. Oh, kimomu, timeless flight, spirit guides through darkest night. Timmy by your side, so true, in a world where dreams come true. Paths of gold beneath her feet, Timmy dances in the street. Shadows blend with twilight hue, spirit sings a song so true. Echoes whisper gentle calls, kimomu feels the mystic thralls. Timmy and the spirit guide, in their hearts where stars collide. Oh, kimomu, timeless flight, spirit guides through darkest night. Timmy by your side, so true, in a world where dreams come true. Paths of gold beneath her feet, Timmy dances in the street. Shadows blend with twilight hue, spirit sings a song so true. In a world where dreams come true.
I don't know. Like, what was
That's a
that?
good
Was that
answer.
weird? Oh God.
Do you need to like really like aim for the heart?
No. Mmm. Wow, Brendan. Like, wow. Yeah. Do I even want to share this? Like, oh my God. No,
No, you share it.
I know.
I'm gonna tell people that I did another podcast with you. Wait, did we rated into that other stream last time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The co-working one that I
Yeah.
recommended. Yeah. No, I'm gonna tell them again when this one comes out, or if we stream,
Oh.
if we do another release stream,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna post it in their self promo channel. So you have to
Okay.
release it.
Yeah, I should do like I should do even like a premiere for this one, right? This is a special episode. Do I even want to share this? Like, oh my God. No,
No, you share it.
No,
No, you share it.
No, no.
No, you share it.
Oh, and I kind of wanted to like pull a card for myself, which I actually kind of accidentally left one here. Well, kind of accidentally left one here. Just this like the garage.
Don't they know it's recording day?
Don't they know?
This is a sacred day. Why are they working? Stay home. It's Monday. You don't want to go
It's
out.
Monday.